Hello, it's so great to see you today. It's Teressa Todd here. I'm a naturopath, biochemist and microbiologist from my Naturopath Gold Coast, and I just wanted to talk to you today a bit about fats and fats in your diet and how they can be healthy for you. But first of all, I just wanted to say I hope you're having an amazing day. I hope that it's the end of the week. I hope you've had a fabulous week and that it's all gone the way it should do for you. And here on the Gold Coast, we've got some beautiful rain coming through. It's just giving the plants that beautiful water that they need. And if you're down south in Melbourne, Sydney, those kind of areas where you've got that smoke haze, please be very careful with that haze. Protect yourself if you're sensitive or if you suffer from asthma. If you've got any health concerns with breathing and allergies and hay fever, please stay indoors until this clears. I'm hoping that for you all that the storms and the rain that's coming through helps to clear that air and clear it up for you. So thank you for joining me today. It's great to always deliver some information. I so cherish these times that I can give the information to you and use my knowledge to help you out. So today I just wanted to talk today about fats. What I've had this week is a few clients talk to me or have a conversation with me that they're just confused on what they should eat and how they should eat because there's so much information out there. One person says, or one website or person says one thing, someone else says another. And there is a lot of conjecture and a lot of confusion about diet because we're constantly finding new things or new science that happens with diet and what goes on. So when we're talking about today, I'm talking about fats. And in my first degree, when I was studying, my sub-major was nutrition. And so when I was studying the biochemistry and looking into the roles of the body, we were taught that fats were bad, that there was a lot of heart attacks around at the time. And the experts of the industry back then thought that fats could be contributing to that because they found out there was a lot of fatty plaques in the heart and they wanted to reduce and minimize the effects on the heart. But the science was, I'm going to say wrong, okay? I'm just going to move this camera for a minute. The science was wrong. So, wrong in a way. It didn't have the full story. Scientists, I'm a scientist, I'm a biochemist, microbiologist, and as scientists, when we're looking at researching, we have a theory in our head, and then we try to prove that theory or disprove it. And sometimes when we disprove it, it doesn't mean that we prove something. So if we disprove that the sky is blue, it doesn't mean that it's not blue. It could be a shade of a blue. Does that make sense? So scientists, when they were looking back in the 80s and the 90s, or back in the 80s, when they were looking at the science around heart disease and they were looking at the fats that were accumulating in the atherosclerotic plaques, they made an assumption that it was the fat in the diet. And they put a blanket statement on all fat is bad. And in my first degree, we were taught that we needed to reduce people's the fat in people's diets when we were looking at the diet and what they should be eating. But it never went into, well, what's the good fats? Why do fish have good fats in them? Why do we have olive oil? Why is the Mediterranean diet so good for so many people? And all of that incorporates some of the good fats. So let's take the blanket statement off fats and say there's all different kinds and they all have a different reason or a different effect in our body. And that's what I wanted to talk to you today about and hopefully shed some light on why you need some of these good fats. So when we went through the 80s and the 90s and we said, okay, well in the early 90s, decrease your fat, we then went for high sugar. And because we either taste fat. When we eat foods, we can either taste the fat, the creaminess, that kind of thing, or we taste the sugar, the sweetness, and that gives us that satiety. So when we decreased fat and everything went low fat, all the foods around went low fat, they actually had to put sugar, the manufacturers had to put sugar into their food to increase the taste. And in doing so, that led to the whole, I suppose, spectrum of conditions and ill health that we've got now with diabetes, dementia, metabolic syndrome, obesity. All of those kinds of things came because of the high sugar that was in our foods. It wasn't the fat. And so when we take the myths off food, we can actually eat a little bit more sensibly and eat a little bit more as nature intended us. So it's not true that fats are bad for us. It's not true that all fats are bad for us. We've got some amazing fats that are really good for our body, and your body has a lot of fats that it uses to make structure. So your brain is about 60% fat. When we weigh it, there's a lot of water in there as well, so that it's the main constituents of the brain is water and fat. And the fat helps the neural connections. It helps the connectivity between each of the nerves that create the grey matter that's in your brain. Your nerves are also, they've got a myelin sheath or a fatty sheath around the nerve to protect the nerve. And that myelin has a lot of fats in there. And so in conditions like MS, we actually get a breakdown of that myelin sheath. And so we get a breakdown of those fats. And that's part of the issue of the nerve, or the symptoms of MS, is because of that nerve breakdown, that fatty acid protective sheath layer. You've also got your cells. Each one of the little cells in the body, and there's trillions of them, each of those little cells has a membrane around it. That membrane is a lipid bilayer. So it's got all different kinds of fats in there, and in that it creates the structure that protects the cell, stops some toxins entering, it can help facilitate nutrients entering, and it can keep the inside of that cell quite stable and healthy, assuming that fat around the edge, around that membrane, is good quality. If it's poor quality, that's when we tend to get some of the illnesses, the tiredness, the fatigues. We don't get the nutrition into our cells as well as we could do. The mitochondria tend to suffer, and we get poor energy production because of that. So in saying all of that, let's talk about the fats. So we've got saturated fats and we've got unsaturated fats. A lot of people tend to know, and you probably already know about the unsaturated fats, that they're the ones that's why fish oil is so popular, because the fish oil have some omega-3, 6s in there that tend to reduce inflammation, that help the brain function, that also help to reduce cholesterol and the risk of heart disease. And that all comes about because of those unsaturated fatty acids, the omegas that are in there. Olive oil, walnuts are another great source of those good fats. So you want to make sure that you're getting good quality fish in your diet, walnuts, olive oil, and even flax seeds in your diet to give you those good quality unsaturated fats. And they're the ones that help to envelope the cells and create that good structure of the cellular membrane. Those are the ones that help keep your brain sharp and keep it functioning and firing and healthy the way it should do. So looking at those foods and just incorporating them and not being scared of fats being bad for you is a great way to do it. But another thing that we get taught, or that we've been taught over time, is that saturated fats are bad for us. So there's a lot of information out there, like I said, about the fish oils and how good they are for you, and so many people are taking fish oil supplements as a way of getting those good fats in there. But what about the saturated fats? The saturated fats are sometimes the ones that get shunned and go, oh, we don't need those, they just cause us to get fat and they cause heart disease. But let's look into the individual fats that are grouped into those saturated fats and see what's in there that you can put into your diet that can help your health. So we know that saturated fats, we've got the medium chain triglycerides or they're called MCTs for short, and they're in fats like coconut oil and olive oil, butter and avocado. And the MCT oils are actually a fuel for your brain. So a lot of people that are struggling to think, have foggy thought, sometimes they can do really well if they put some coconut oil and some olive oil into their eating plan. Maybe cook with some cook with some coconut oil, put the olive oil on your salads. By incorporating that into your eating plan regularly, you're actually feeding your brain. You're giving your brain the fuel it needs to create the clarity that you need. And so a lot of people find they can think better, they can make better decisions, they're not feeling as overwhelmed or as foggy in their thought. Also, it can help with your immune system. So those good fats can help with your immune cells and keep them vital and keep them mobile. It can help to reduce the risk of heart disease because it actually helps alongside the good fats. It can help with the fat fat-burning process of the body, and in that we tend to lose weight as well because we use these MCT oils as a fuel. We burn them straight away, so we don't need to have the other carbohydrates to come through, which can be converted to fat later. We're already burning these fats straight up. So a lot of people find that when they're including some, and I'm not saying a lot, but they're including some of these oils into their diet, then they're helping to lose weight. And on that note, I did have a client about a year ago, who was struggling to lose weight. She was eating a lot of nuts and seeds and coconut oil in her diet. It was probably constituting about 40% of her eating plan each day. And when we looked at her genetics, when we did a genetic profile with her, it was that her genes couldn't deal with that quantity of fat. So we needed to reduce the amount of fats that was in her diet, reduce the amount of nuts, reduce the amount of coconut oil to more of what I call a moderate intake. So just because it's good for you doesn't mean that you can go over the top and start eating it in your diet consistently all day, every day, everything in moderation. And so for this person, she was exercising 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, not able to lose weight. When I worked with her and we reduced the fat content by reducing the nuts in her diet, she could actually halve her exercise and still burn fat. So that's I suppose the golden egg of that one is not to go overboard and go, hey, this is an amazing, fat is good for us, let's start eating it all day, every day because we want to lose weight. There has to be a balance in your diet. So be very careful just not to start having it as snacks in your salads all day. Keeping it in that moderate. So you don't want it to be 40% of your eating program. Some people need it to be about 10 to 20% because their genetics can only handle that about 20 grams. If I'm saying 10%, it's around that 20 to 25 grams of pure fat per day. So looking at your diet and just keeping the fats to about, let's say 20%. If we were to put your food out on the table here and we looked at the rough quantities, so we want to have 80% of your salad, fruits and the veggies, and then the rest of that 20% that's left should come from your fats, come from your proteins, come from whatever other what I call sometimes foods to put in there. So you can see that fats don't constitute the whole amount of your diet. So when I'm talking weight loss, it's not about going out and eating a load of fat to lose weight. It is about incorporating it sensibly into your diet already. The other thing that sometimes we neglect with the good fats, especially MCT oils, is that they actually feed the good bacteria of our gut. So we've got trillions of bacteria in our gut that are helping keep us healthy. And some of these fats that we're consuming actually feed them rather than us. Well, us as well, but they're feeding the good bacteria, and the good bacteria then flourish. And then those good bacteria actually create more chemicals, compounds that actually feed us and trigger our genetics for us to be as healthy as we can be. So incorporating it moderately in your diet is a great way of doing it. So coconut oil, olive oil, butter, they're all great, avocados, they're all great sources for this MCT oil that have some saturated fats in there and also have some unsaturated fats as well. Now with coconut oil, it also has a chemical or a compound in there called caprylic acid. And caprylic acid has been shown to help kill candida. And there's a lot of people that are suffering from a bit of a candidal overgrowth in their digestive system because of the poor diet or because of certain other medications and alcohol that they take in on a daily basis. It drives the candida up, the levels up in their gut. So coconut oil with the caprylic acid can be an amazing way of decreasing the levels of bugs, bad bugs, I'm very technical with that, bugs called Candida albicans or even Clostridium. A lot of science has shown that it can help with Clostridium as well. So keep it in your diet on a daily basis, but in a moderate amount. The only thing that I would like to share with you today, I'm not into telling people what not to eat. I always like to put foods into their diet to help increase their health rather than restrict their diet. But the one thing with fats that we know for a certainty is that trans fats are bad for us. So what are trans fats? I've just said that saturated fats and unsaturated fats are good for us. And we used to think that saturated fats were bad for us until we learned more about the saturated fats and the components of those. But trans fats are the fats that are chemically altered, usually in a laboratory or in a manufacturing process. And it's the fats that our body really can't use. And it disrupts our cellular membranes. It disrupts all the other good fats that we've got in our body and creates inflexibility of our cells, creates a fragility of our cells. So our cells don't have the ability to change and alter their membranes to allow nutrients in and nutrients out. So foods that have the trans fats in them are things like your frozen foods, your frozen meals, the pizzas, chips, the chicken, the chicken meals, the fish, all of those kinds of things that are frozen and in your freezer. They've generally got a margarine or a trans fat derivative in them to help stabilize them while they're being frozen. Bakery products also have a lot of trans fats in them. You've got your pastries. A lot of those have trans fats as well. So decreasing the amount of these kinds of foods that you have so that they don't disrupt all the goodness that you're doing with having those good fats in your diet and helping the cellular membranes do their job and open up and alter their structure so they can allow the nutrients in and the toxins out. So that's where it comes back to eat as nature intended us. I'm not saying never have a frozen meal. What I'm saying is limit the amount of the frozen foods you're having, limit the amount of bakery products, limit the amount of pastries and margarines so that you don't have a lot of these in your diet. You might have it as a sometimes food. You might go out for dinner occasionally and have something like a nice pastry or a pie or something like that. Keep it as a sometimes food, that it's maybe occasionally, that it's not in your everyday diet. Because when it's in our everyday diet, that's when it gets incorporated into our cellular membranes, and that's when the cellular membranes don't cope, and then we get the tiredness, we get the fatigue, we get the poor nutrition, and all the chronic conditions that can go with that. So with that, it's just about eating sensibly, not being scared of a food. Please, the one thing that I really advocate these days is not to be scared of food. Sometimes we can find out all this information and suddenly be scared of all this food and we can't eat anything. And some of my clients come into me with that and they go, I just don't know what to eat anymore. I don't know what's right, what's wrong. Come back to your basics. Eat foods at what I call as nature intended. So plant foods, salad, fruits and veggies being the mainstay of your eating plan. If you eat meat, you can then add a little bit of meat as a side with that. If you eat eggs, you could add eggs into that somewhere. So your plant food is 80% of your diet. And then you'll put in these good fats. So the coconut oils, the olive oils, the nuts, the seeds, the avocados, they've all got your good fats. You've got your fish oils in that if you eat fish. So you can bring all of that together to give you those good fats. But that stays at that less than 20% of your whole intake for the day. And then you can also add, like I said, the meats, the eggs, the beans, if you do want your cereals and your pastries and those kinds of things, having it as a sometimes food. Sometimes food means not having it every day, but just having it as a treat occasionally so that you do satisfy those little taste buds that want that kind of food and you don't feel like you're deprived. But when you can eat an eating plan that is full of nutrients, has your good fats and has some proteins and amino acids in there, your body is able to do all of the functions that it can do and keep you living a beautiful, healthy life. So I hope I've been able to dispel some of the myths around fats and dispel some of the fear that we can get with that. If you've got any questions and you're watching this later, please make any comments. If there is any concerns about any kinds of foods, place a comment because it's not meant to be scary. It's meant to be quite easy and easy to follow and something that everyone can put into their daily life. I loved seeing you all today and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a fabulous weekend and enjoy your beautiful food and your beautiful weekend. Bye for now.